My project today is I have Lowrance depth sounder on the boat already, and I decided to purchase what they call their Active Target system, and I'm going to try to install that and see what it takes. Up so far, what I have I have their Elite Ti2 7-inch. Normally it mounts right here, and I purchased that one because the 7-inch fit in this area really nicely, and it sits on this rotating pivot, so I can point it whichever way I want. The 7-inch normally mounts there, and you can see the plugs. It has the active imaging 3-in-1 transducer on the back, so it does down scan, normal, and side scan. But what I wanted to do was try to get something up in the front. Currently on the trolling motor I have a very old Hummingbird unit that gives me a down view. So I bought the Active Target system, and my intention is to put the transducer on the trolling motor and wire up and mount the amplifier box. It looks like this is a pretty involved job, so I'm going to take a look and see what it takes. I've already looked at the boat and the boat's wiring in order to wire in 2 more power plugs that need fuses, and I have a couple of spare switches in the dash that already are on circuit breakers. So, and I believe they're both on 3 amp circuit breakers, so I think they're fine. And I've purchased one of the latest, what are they called, Elite FS 9-inch screens, which I'll use up front with the Active Target, and we'll see how things go from there. I think I could also run an extension cable from the dash here and pick up the rear transducer and plug both of them in. I'm not quite sure how that will all work out, but for the moment the goal would be to see if I can make the Active Target system work. Well, I'm sure I can, but see what it takes to adapt it in and how it attaches to the trolling motor and so forth. As I've been looking at the instructions, it's a little bit more involved than what I thought at first, so we'll see. So there's my main unit, and it won't work with the active targeting because it's an Elite Ti2 and it doesn't have the Ethernet connection. It's not compatible. So I'm going to keep that one connected to the 3-in-1, and then my new display. So then my new display, which is this Elite FS 9, is set up with the Ethernet connection to be able to run the active targeting. Well, challenge number 1 is how to mount the transducer. See, my old Hummingbird transducer is just connected on a mount that's screwed with a hose clamp, and the wires come up, wrap around here a couple of times, and then the slack just is pulled back into the boat. But the first method of mounting this is from the shaft up here, and when the motor's retracted and in its stored position, there's really no room on that shaft to put a new transducer bracket. So that one probably won't work. It looked like a nice versatile method, but on this trolling motor that isn't going to work. So what I expect I'm going to need to do is mount to the motor with a clamp just like it is currently, and see if I can select the correct orientation. After looking at all the options, I think I'm going to pick, to start with, I'm going to pick the Scout orientation where it looks down and forward. It says it covers a broad area, and clamp it to the motor, and that always allows me the ability to turn it and put it into one of the other orientations. So we'll start there. Looks like I need to do is run that clamp through the slots in this bracket, put the And we got that one, and we got this one, and I think this one ends up being the side mount, and this one becomes being the top mount. So let's see what I can do here. Alright, so that wasn't too hard. Got the clamp through the one for scout orientation. Got it tightened down with a screwdriver, not too tight, but tight enough that it's not going anywhere. And then need to put the transducer on there. Eh? Alright, it's got some alignment marks on it. I don't know which way is up, so to speak. Let's see if it... The hook makes it appear that this would be the right orientation with the cable off to the left-hand side of the motor. So let me see what it takes to get the nut in there. Something tells me it isn't going to go. And just a minute. So I guess the answer is that you need a washer like this that fits a bolt like that. It's stainless steel. Yeah, Allen head. Goes together like that, but you need to put it in before you put this bracket on the motor, because you can't get a wrench in to tighten it after you get it set. So, well, you might be able to get a shorty, but this is what I have, and it looks like a 3/16 will fit. It might be metric, but a 3/16 is close. And if I kept digging, I'd find a metric one in my toolbox. But, so let's back this guy out of here for the moment. Trying to be careful not to tear the paint up. Clamp kind of wants to dig in. So we'll tighten that up. And there is an alignment mark over here. I have it aligned. So let's cinch it down. I don't want to kill it, but I don't want to lose it. So there we go. Now let's try installing it back on here. Again, gently so I don't mess up paint on my motor. One, then it isn't pretty, and two, then it could corrode. Paint's protection from everything, so. Alright. Now we'll come back and cinch this thing down. There we go. Tight, but don't break anything. And then I tucked, when you do this, you end up with the tail of the clamp kind of sticking out in the air, so I oriented it so that the tail went inside the bracket so it doesn't flop around and catch on anything. Alright, so that puts the transducer up where it needs to be. And then all I'll need to do is figure out what to do with the cable, because as you come across here, you know, this cable's pretty thick and stiff, so, and I can't tie it to the shaft like here, because that shaft has to go all the way down to that collar. So I may need to do, I'll probably move this collar down an inch or two so I can tie down the cable up at the top somewhere. The old Humminbird, the cable was kind of loose, and I spiraled it, wrapped it around the shaft, and it would push to the bottom when the motor's up, and when the motor was down I would just stretch it out a little bit, just so it didn't end up in the prop here. But this one's got a pretty stout cable, so I'll say another little bit of a surprise I wasn't quite expecting. But I suspect there's a lot of data going across there, so they need enough wires to be able to carry everything. Well, that's how the mounting looks. I put one wrap around the shaft, just one, and I'm gonna have to probably get some nylon wire, wire tie, and clamp it. Right now I just used the wire to tie it down, and we're gonna see how that works. Well, I'm getting things aligned here on the hoist and at the dock. So I'm tied here. I shortened the motor up a little bit because it was hitting the bottom. But the cable basically goes down straight, and I lost my one twist. I may need to put that back, but it sure isn't going to get caught in the prop. And that's how it dresses out when it's in the water. And like I say, it comes up here, and probably with a wire tie. And then the key will be, the wire tie probably can't be, it's like this, it can't be too tight, because the motor still has to spin back and forth. But so far that's a start. And then on this boat I have a spot here where the cables and things can go down out of the anchor locker, and I'm going to try that first. If that doesn't work, I may have to drill a hole and put it into the compartment under the seat. But that's my starting point right now. Now to mount the control box, I've got behind the bow here, I've got a couple storage lockers, and I could access them over a partition with the transducer cable, so that works well. And I can access them from the back to bring in power from the battery and the control switches. So there the unit is. It's mounted to a partition, looks like polyethylene or polypropylene, kind of a plastic partition, 4 screws screwed in with the connections down, which I thought would be a good idea from any possibility of any water coming down cables or anything, to have the connectors down. But now that they're on the bottom, I can't see them for plugging things in. That still should be okay, but just a thought. Okay, well, I made all my connections. This one I've disconnected. I've got everything connected. I've got a set of wires running up to the main bus, and have the fuses connected for both the depth sounder and the box. The problem I got is that it doesn't work. I should be more specific about it doesn't work. The FS9 comes up and works just nicely, and you can see it has all of its icons, but I can't find an icon for the Active Target system, and it appears that that isn't coming up and powering up. What I think the problem is I've been doing a little research. What I wanted to do was, there's a yellow wire that comes out of the Active Target system, and allegedly you should be able to connect between your depth sounder, between your head unit and the Active Target, and the yellow wire is a wake-up wire that should turn things on. However, 'tis not doing that. And I went with a meter and checked, and there is no power on the yellow wire down here at my bundle. I chose yellow to make it easy when I wired. So this yellow wire from the Active Target power cable is connected to a yellow wire that goes up to my power cable for my head unit, for my FS9. And I'll shut this down. And I think maybe that's by design, by my mistake, whatever. the power cable has the yellow wire in it. It was cut off at the end, stubbed off, and so I stripped it back and I connected it. But nothing is working. And then if I come up here and look at the power plug, see if we get a good look here, I don't see a pin in that power plug. Now I don't know why Lowrance would run the yellow wire through the cable and not hook it to anything, but it kind of looks that way. So let me dig in here a little more. So I'm going to say is that I think Lowrance may have misled me a little bit. This is an online I think it's from an HDS owner's manual, and you can see the plug, and it has a yellow wire, but it also has the stack. It's Power Plus NEMA 0183, and it has the yellow wire active. And then if I go look at in that same one, you look at the power for a 10 wire connector, the distribution of pins, and number 1 is the accessory wake up. And if I go look at this one, I mean the only two that are powered are power and ground, and this one over here has there's no contact in there. So I ordered this cable and bought it special because I needed an extra one, because the one I had the yellow wire in it, and I'm like, well, that should work, but apparently it doesn't. So alright, what I'm going to do is put in a jumper switch. This is going to look Rube Goldberg, or not so good, but I have a light switch that I happen to have just sitting on my bench. I didn't have any 12 volt switches laying around, so temporarily I'm just going to get a jumper in there and see if I can make this system power up. I've gone ahead and connected between the yellow and the red. I've connected a switch between, so yellow would be the wake up line, and it goes all the way up to the FS9, but obviously isn't connected to anything at the moment. And the red is the fused supply from the front, from my dash, which is not on a switch, it's full-time hot. So, and if this works, I may have to find the right power cord and replace the power cord for my FS9 so that the yellow actually works. But in the meantime, let's give this a try here. Power on at the master switch, but not the yellow. I'll hit my turn on lead here. Shazam, we get 3 lights that light up. Indicates that that should be working. If I turn the switch back off, what do I get? Looks like it's staying on. Well, I did see something about a software update. I'll have to check and see if this unit needs it, because there was a problem with the units not turning back off when you turned off the switch. This boat has a master power switch for the whole boat, so I can shut all the 12 volt down back there, but it'll finally go off. Looks like maybe it did. Good. Let me hit the switch back on again then. Yeah, looks good. Alright. Well, if that's working, I already checked my Elite unit, and it's got the latest software in it for sure. I'll try that again. See how long it takes for it to drop out. Starting to blink. And it goes out. Cool. Alright. Well, let me power that back up again. And then And let's see what my how my FS9 unit looks here. Let's light this guy up. I've had this hooked to an active imaging. Alright, now let's hit configure now. Fresh water. Oh, that's not hard to do. These features have been enabled. Alright, now the active target isn't in the water, so we won't see much of anything. But I get a display full of noise. That makes sense. Alright. Well, now that we know the system's up and operating, I'm going to try to get the boat out here on the water and see if I can make it work. One of the things I've done with the active target, it has a lot of transducer cable and it's pretty heavy. And because of the mount on the boat, you can't make permanent attachments to the shaft. So I bought a roll of these Velcro wrap ties, and so I've got it connected at the top here, and that one will probably stay, but it's loose enough that it'll turn when the motor pivots. And then I've got a couple of them going down the shaft that I can unhook when I deploy the motor, and if I want to, I can restrap it to the shaft as it goes down. And we'll see how that works out. Okay, currently I have this deployed in scout mode, and this is just a view of what that looks like. And I would say, based on where we sit, that's my anchor rope down here. I do have it anchored, and we're swinging a little bit. So there are some things, and it looks like fish out here in the distance. I'm going to swing it a little bit and see what I get. Now the motor's, now it's pointing back, kind of to the back direction of the boat. Just kind of scanning it. There's my rope again. But it does appear that there are fish around in the display. Let's try to go closer here. We're in about 10 feet of water, so 10 or 12. Well, there's a larger fish going through, I would say. Let's make that 30 feet. And it kind of disappears off into the distance. Alright. Well, I've been tinkering around with this. It's an interesting view. But I'd kind of like to swing it around. I'm going to try to put it on scout. Or not on scout. I think I'd like to try forward. Although this is very much an interesting... You can see fish and knowing what direction I'm pointed, Turn off the noise rejection. It is kind of cool though to see the fish swimming around out there. And there's another one off to the distance. I'll just put it in automatic here. So the automatic wants to go out 80 feet, which is a pretty long distance for here. I think the 15 to 20 range seems to be about right. Okay, so at the moment I have that transducer in scout mode pointing to the front. I'm just going to loosen the clamp and take this guy off and then bring it in the boat and do the changeover. Well, so now that I've got it in here and I need to make the swap, I've got to take this clamp out of here so that I can get this apart, and then to go on the side of the motor I need to use this one with the teeth according to what the book says. U is the down and forward bracket, and then to get this part out. So that's a starting point. We gotta unscrew that and get this removed. So with the clamp out, I have the scout mode piece removed, and then it appears then that this will be the piece that goes on the side. It has the markings on it so that you could use it forward or down, and it looks like this one will take the shoulder bolt and we'll let me see how that works, and then I'm going to set it up so that it mounts on this side of the motor for storage. Now I would also say is the instructions aren't completely clear, so if you use U, the down and forward bracket, that's this one, because it has the teeth in it that will engage with the teeth on the transducer. And it would appear to me, later in the instructions they tell you that you can reorient this just by turning it. So they never show you in the instructions where to put the rubber washer, but it looks to me that this particular bracket, in order for it to work right, will use the shoulder bolt instead of a fully threaded bolt, and use the rubber washer, which will give you the ability to reposition this. And I guess I'm going to find that out in a minute. So I'm going to put that on here and then put the clamp back through it. We'll see how that works. Now that appears to be the ticket, and I've got it aligned to one of the alignment marks on top. And if you don't have one in your kit, this is a 5mm hex wrench. So we'll need to cinch this down with the 5mm wrench until it's tight. And then I'm going to go put that clamp back in and put her back on the motor. Alright, so now I've got it mounted on the side of the motor, and it looks like it's pretty much square to the world. I've got it at the alignment mark for being forward, but on this one I can just move it a notch and point it straight down. So we can use either mode without having to take the bracket back off again. If I want to go back to scout, I got to switch the plastic piece out and go back. That's a fair amount of work. Well, we'll see what mode works the best. And for right now, I'm going to focus on going forward. So there we go. We're in about 10 feet of water, 10 or 12, and it's showing outbound about a 70-foot range, and from time to time as it swings we see the anchor rope coming through here. So this is, again, this is the forward view, and if I shorten up that range a little because of the depth, no, that wasn't what I wanted. Let's go to 10 feet at 15 feet depth, and let's shorten the forward range. Make that more like 30 because we're getting out off a long ways. Let's see what we get. Sort of looks like we got fish coming up around the transducer, up around the motor. Let's see if I can put that. Let's see if I can swing that motor a little bit and point it in a different direction. Thinks I'm in down mode. It's not, it's in forward, so let's keep it that way. Let's take this back to 30 feet. Let's take that back to, let's take it back to 10 feet. There's a number of fish there. Shorten it up some more. Well, there's a number of fish coming through. Looks like they're swimming through right under the boat. Well, I'm gonna have to see what I can find and how this works to help me fish. But it's certainly working. Scout mode showed me, as you might think, a broader view, but this has its own advantages, and I could switch it to down pretty easy, but for right now I think I'm going to leave this in forward and see what it does. Well, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed that video. If so, please subscribe to my channel.